I have a question for all of you. If Activision came to you today and told you that you now have the freedom to do whatever you want with Call of Duty Zombies, you decide exactly where the franchise goes, you decide exactly what each game is going to be like, what are you going to do with Call of Duty Zombies? Try to be somewhat realistic with it, but also make it just your own thing. What do you think zombies should do in these future games? That is what I'm going to be talking about today. Generally speaking, what I think the next couple years of zombies should look like. I'm going to be going all the way up to COD 2028 with this video, so that would be 5 Call of Duty Zombies games I'm going to be talking about in this video, and I want to start off talking about with the things that I think should be in all of these games, so I might as well just get those out of the way so we don't have to repeat myself for each and every game. First things first, each and every one of these Call of Duty games would have round-based zombies content. Yes, each and every one of them, including the non-Treyarch games. But of course, the non-Treyarch games would not be made by Treyarch. We are not going to deal with a Vanguard or Modern Warfare Zombies situation where Treyarch is forced to work on other studios' games and then they end up taking away time on their own game. That's not happening here. It's going to be the other studios making their own zombie modes in those games. Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward, whoever is available to do it would be making zombies modes in those games. Treyarch is only going to be working on their own games' zombies modes. The HUD, which of course stands for the heads-up display, would be changed to be more like Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, where it's a lot more simplistic and doesn't have a million things popping up on the screen when you're killing zombies like it does in Black Ops Cold War, which also means there would be no minimap and the HUD itself would feel a lot more unique to the mode. It would not just be basically a Warzone or multiplayer HUD. Overall, there'd be a much bigger focus on immersion, so stuff like in-game menus would not exist either. Anything that is in-game would essentially be available on the map somewhere. You would never have to look at an in-game menu within a zombies mode. Each game would also have a ton of original content. It would not be made up of a bunch of reused assets from campaign or multiplayer. It would be mostly its own thing, and it would feel very unique to zombies. It would have all that personality that zombies should have. Which also means the maps within the same game would feel very different from one another. There'd be lots of unique features that are only existing on specific maps, and you wouldn't have everything being the exact same on each map. The games would be casual friendly while still appealing towards hardcore fans with complex and in-depth maps and Easter eggs returning. But you could still have a more simplistic quest alongside a hardcore quest, kind of like what the Final Reich did with their main Easter egg quest. There would be a lot of side quests on every map with a lot of unique rewards specifically tied to that side quest, so certain things that you can only get through that specific side quest. Maps would also have a heavy focus on exploration and discovery, so lots of hidden secrets, not stuff that's like impossible to find for the average player, but stuff that you can find just by looking around. Think of something like Resident Evil 2 Remake, where there's tons of secret puzzles you can find and you can solve, and then you can unlock new rooms. Stuff like that should be a thing on every single map. They also shouldn't be scared to do multiple boss fights on a singular map as well. You shouldn't just have the boss fight be there for the final Easter egg boss fight. Why not have a side boss fight somewhere in there? Maybe there's a secret room you find that leads you into a big boss and then you have to take it out for some reward, kind of like what Zetsubo no Shima had with the spider boss fight. There would be tons of Easter egg rewards, including rewards for actually beating the Easter egg under a certain amount of time as a way to reward speedrunners, because I feel like speedrunners deserve some rewards. We also definitely need to go back to 4-person crews as the main characters. I don't want this operator stuff to become the norm. Of course, I think operators should be there as a choice. If you want to play as the operators, sure, go for it. But the main characters should be an option as well because it just adds so much more personality to the maps. And lastly, just go back to making zombies wild and fun. Just have a bunch of crazy features that are just really engaging to the player, and do not just simply turn the mode into a weapon level and camo grind simulator. With that being said, let's start off with Call of Duty 2024, which is most likely going to be titled Black Ops Gulf War, and of course will be made by Treyarch. Now, if this game is able to do everything I already mentioned, then it already is off to a great start, and I do think this game could end up being fantastic if it is able to nail everything I just mentioned. But let's get into some more specific things about what this game should be. So I'm not going to go too in depth with the leaks, but if you haven't heard already, there has been leaks about what the round-based maps for the launch of Call of Duty Black Ops 2024 is supposed to be, and one of the maps is supposed to be set in a city with there being a bank, church, and police tape, and it's likely going to have a lot of verticality, so I'm not sure what that's exactly going to entail, but that's just what the leak says. And then the second launch map is said to be a map on an island with an elevator that goes down to a prison, and there's also going to be a boat right next to the island that I guess you can explore. Now, I think just to keep consistency with the rest of the game, I do think these two maps will be set in the 90s, and I think they should be set in the 90s because the full game is supposed to be set in the 90s. And I think more than anything, this city map seems like it could definitely take advantage of being set in the 90s more than anything. Hopefully it's set in the United States, just because I feel like getting that like 90s culture of the United States would be really interesting to see put into a zombies map. And just like what you had in Infinite Warfare Zombies, you can have certain areas of the map that plays music specifically from the 90s, and obviously they have to get a lot of licensed music to be able to do that. But how awesome would that be, just having a map that takes place in this 90s city and just has a bunch of 90s references to it? You know what I mean? I think that would just be really, really interesting, and it'd be best time they can actually do that for one of the launch maps. And I think in a lot of ways, this map should feel a bit more lighthearted. It should be the release map that's maybe a bit simpler, maybe a little less complex, but still has some deep, detail to it. It's just maybe a little more on the casual side. I know some people have been speculating that this map might be a remake of Transit because apparently the jet gun has also been found in the COD 2024 files, but I honestly don't think it should be a Transit remake. I think if they're going to do that, they should save it for another game. But in general, I do think this would be a really cool launch map just to kind of really take in that 90s feel more than anything. And the other launch map I think should be like the Zetsubou no Shima of this game. The fact that it's going to take place on an island with a secret prison and a laboratory and apparently a boat next to it with a deck cannon of some sort, that to me could definitely have a lot of awesome, scary, creepy, eerie elements to it, kind of like what Zetsubou no Shima did. And I really want them to go far with that. Make it a creepy map. If you want to bring back spiders, bring back spiders. I don't really care. Do a bunch of cool stuff like that. Just make it be really creepy and make this map be a lot more difficult, have a lot more complexity to it, and overall be the map that hardcore fans tend to gravitate towards more than anything. And then when we start getting to the DLC maps, I think that's when things gotta start getting a bit crazy. Now, I would love for them to start introducing time travel, but I don't think they necessarily have to do that now. I think they just need to have maps that take place in other eras. One of the biggest issues with Black Ops Cold War Zombies for me was that every map took place in the exact same era, but something that was really awesome about Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, even Infinite Warfare, was that you had maps that took place in completely different eras, which just made things feel a bit more interesting. And obviously you have to tie it into the story somehow, and I'm not going to go too in detail with how it should tie into the story, but they're creative, they can find a way to do it. In general, I think some of these DLC maps should take place in different eras. If they want to do it with time travel, go for it. If they don't, then go for that too. I don't really care. Just have a bunch of different maps that take place in different eras, start introducing topics that are a bit crazier, kind of like what Black Ops 2 and 3 did. I mean, you compare that to Black Ops 1, things were a little more grounded in Black Ops 1. You started getting to Black Ops 2 and 3, they started introducing some crazy concepts, which I think this is about time where they probably should start doing that for the Dark Aether story. Now, there's one map idea I have for Black Ops Gulf War that I don't think will ever happen in a million years, but this is obviously my ideas, and I think this would be fantastic. So as a way to just pay homage to the original Aether story, we should get at least one more map that takes place in the original Aether story. Some people might say that makes no sense because they're so focused on the Dark Aether story, but I say who cares? Just let them do something different for once. I mean, you look at any franchise out there. I mean, DC's a good example, right? They got the new DC universe starting soon, I think next year with the Superman movie, but they still have other franchises within them that don't actually take place in that same universe. For an example, they have the Batman universe with Matt Reeves' The Batman that came out a couple years ago. Not everything should have to take place within the same universe, and I think it'd be really cool to just get a map that takes place back during the Aether story. And specifically, my idea is give us that Great War map that everybody's been wanting for years. And there's a perfect part in the story where they can easily implement this as well. It would be after Revelations, but before Blood of the Dead. So I'm not a storyline expert, keep that in mind. I have read through the entire storyline multiple times, but even then there are many points in the story that I do get confused by. So if you can correct me if I'm wrong about something, definitely feel free to correct me. But after Revelations, of course, Primus was sent back to the Great War, specifically when Pablo Marinus was there in 1294. And it actually was, I believe, in northern France. So you could have the map take place in northern France during 1294, which would probably be very medieval. Like, I would assume it would look very medieval. You would have probably castles or something. It would be very much a medieval style map, and you would have the Primus characters, maybe even with the stabs. Bring back the stabs from Black Ops 2 Origins. Have the, Pothicans being there, the Keepers, obviously everything that you would think to have within the Great War would be there, and would be a very epic map that would just kind of finally give us that Great War experience. And the main Easter egg would make complete sense, because the whole idea of what happens here is that, of course, they were able to send Primus Richthofen to Blood of the Dead, that's the Richtofen that ends up showing up in the Blood of the Dead cutscene at the very end with the crystal that he had, I believe it was the elemental gem from the Staff of Fire itself. You would literally have the whole Easter egg be getting him there. I know a lot of people might think this would be weird because, of course, Tom Kane, who is Takio's voice actor, unfortunately suffered a stroke a couple years ago, and he's not really doing voice acting anymore. But I don't necessarily think they would have to have Takio as a playable character because you do have Pablo there. You can just use Pablo Marinus as the 4th character, assuming they do, of course, a 4-character crew, which they definitely should for these maps. Some people might still think that is stupid and they shouldn't do that out of respect, but I don't really think Tom Kane would be mad that they did that. I don't think he would have a problem with it, but then again, I don't know. I guess they could ask him for permission or something, and I don't think he would be against it. And I've said for years, I don't think these characters really need to return. They don't really have to, but I mean, just giving us that Great War map that we've always wanted would be really awesome. So even if this is the last time we ever see them, I'm totally fine with that. And I don't think it would undermine the send-off that the characters had at the end of Tag der Toten, because that was their send-off. That was the end of these characters. This takes place before that. It's just as an example, it's kind of like what they're doing with Wolverine. They ended his story in 2017's Logan movie, and now they're bringing him back in Deadpool and Wolverine, but they've said multiple times that it's not going to affect that ending. That ending is still there. It is still the ending of that character. There's just other stories they wanted to tell with it. And here is not really a new story. The story already exists. It's just putting it into a map form, and that's really all it would be. And that's pretty much all I have to say about Call of Duty 2024 Zombies, but let's talk about something else that would also be releasing in 2024 under my, rule over zombies content. I would be implementing a Warzone Zombies mode. Now here's the thing, I really don't enjoy open world zombies that much. I really don't. I've tried it so much, and I think there's some fun to be had, don't get me wrong, but I think as a full concept, I just don't think it ever can give me that same experience that round-based zombie does. So I wouldn't really be mad if open world zombies just never returned, but I do think there is a large audience for it out there, and so if it was up to me, I would want it to still continue in some form. I just don't want Treyarch to be making it because I don't want this open world content to come at the cost of round-based content. So what would end up happening is that a separate studio, likely Raven Software or maybe some other studio, not too sure, they would be implementing a Warzone Zombies mode that would be attached to the Warzone mode. It would not necessarily be connected to zombies in Black Ops Cold 4, it would be more so connected to Warzone because it would actually be free to play. It would take the best elements from Outbreak and the best elements from Modern Warfare Zombies and kind of smush it into a brand new free-to-play experience, which I think would be great because it will get a lot of new players to start playing zombies because, of course, it's going to be free to play, and maybe it'll convince them to actually want to buy the full game in order to try out the main round-based content. Because before, we've never had any free-to-play zombies content. Literally never has there been free-to-play zombies. So this would be really, really cool. And it would be a mode that is updated every single year by Raven Software or any other studio. It just would not be developed by Treyarch. They would be fully focused on the round-based content. And of course, like I said, this would be still just updated every year with a brand new map, whatever the new Warzone map is. They would throw in the new map. For example, Verdansk is supposed to come back next year, or I guess technically this year. And so that would be the first map that it gets. It would get Verdansk as its main map, and players can just jump on that and enjoy that. And that's what would just keep happening year after year, but it would not be the main focus. The main focus would, of course, be round-based zombies. And the focus on the mode would be purely about the sandbox elements. It would be a full sandbox of zombies. So basically anything that's added to zombies in COD 2024, 2025, 2026, and onward would be then added to this mode, kind of like what they already do with Warzone and the multiplayer content. They basically throw in a bunch of multiplayer content into Warzone every year and kind of make it feel more like that year's experience. There wouldn't be too much of a focus on story or anything like that. It would literally just be a mode where you can jump in, do objectives, kill zombies, and have fun. And that's basically what it's meant to be. And of course, next up would be Call of Duty 2025, which currently is rumored to be a Black Ops 2 sequel. And I'm not sure who's going to be developing it, but I think it is highly likely it's going to be Treyarch again, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I guess they're probably going to be cutting some of their content thin from COD 2024 and bringing it over to COD 2025. I think best case scenario is that Activision could just get another studio to help work on this game, so it's not just Treyarch doing it. Maybe Sledgehammer will do a little bit on it, but I don't really want them to because I want them to be focused on their next game. Obviously, Infinity Ward likely won't be able to do anything. Raven's got their Warzone stuff going on. So maybe High Moon Studios or something like that. One of those other studios around Activision could probably be helping out with this game. And hopefully that'll be the case because it would really suck if Treyarch had to make two different zombie modes in 2 different years, it's gonna cut them thin quite a bit. Now, I think this would be the perfect game to actually do Zombies Chronicles 2 with the Victus maps returning. Of course, that would be Transit, Die Rise, and Buried. There's been lots of rumors of those coming out for the past couple years, and it's just never happened, but I think this would be the perfect time to do it because COD 2024, like I said, should focus primarily on new content, so then this game could then bring in some of the remakes. And of course, the multiplayer is already rumored to have a bunch of Black Ops 2 maps being remastered, so it makes perfect sense to also do the same for some of the Black Ops 2 Zombies maps, and in this case being Transit, Die Rise, and Buried. But I do think it should be heavy reimaginings for each of those maps and not just straight up remasters, kind of like what the Black Ops 4 Ether maps were, where they didn't really play anything like the original versions, they were just utilizing the same location. That is definitely how these maps should be, because for Transit and Die Rise, the original versions of those maps are not very good. I don't think people would like them if they returned and were basically exactly the same. They need to be heavily changed with different Easter eggs, different stuff to do on the maps, definitely completely different maps. I think that would be the best way they can go. And even for Buried, although I really love Buried in Black Ops 2, I don't think it should be the exact same, because if I just wanted to play Buried from Black Ops 2, I'll go play Buried from Black Ops 2. The map is kind of timeless, you know what I mean? So I don't need that exact same experience again in this game, which was one of the reasons I wasn't that crazy about the first Zombies Chronicles, is because I never really cared to play most of those maps. I could just play the OG versions. The only version that was actually improved heavily was probably Moon. Moon actually got a lot of quality of life improvements and actually became a much better map, but the other ones, I just rather play the original versions of them, and the same thing would probably go for these maps. So I don't think this should be the exact same, definitely change them up quite a bit, but this would be the perfect time to do that. And as for the rest of the maps in the game, definitely have some maps that take place in the near futuristic setting, which would fit very well with this game, considering the rumor is that the game is supposed to be taking place in 2030, of course being a Black Ops 2 sequel. So I think that would be really, really awesome. I think there's definitely a lot of cool looking maps you can do with that setting, and hopefully it's, you know, continuing off of COD 2024 with very similar mechanics, very similar features, but adding a bunch of new stuff as well and making it feel very unique. And the next thing I'm going to say is probably the most controversial thing I'm going to say in this video, but I think COD 2025 should end the Dark Ether story. I don't think it should go on any longer after this. I think it would be the perfect time to end it, because of course Gulf War is going back and almost going to be a prequel to what Modern Warfare Zombies is in terms of that storyline. Even the recent cutscene from Season 2 Reloaded actually covered some stuff about Gulf War. They actually talked about some of the events that happened in Gulf War, and we haven't even get to play that yet, so we're going to get to play that. But then this game would of course take place mostly after those events of Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, so I think this would be the perfect time to just end that story and just finish it out. And I do hope that the games afterward just do completely new stories that are completely separate from the campaign stuff. That's kind of why I want it to end, because I don't like this whole campaign connection they're trying to do here. Completely separate it and make it its own thing after the fact. But this would be the last game for the Dark Ether story, and I think it was a decent run. You know, you had Cold War, Vanguard, Modern Warfare 3, COD 2024, COD 2025. That's 5 games right there within the Dark Ether storyline. So if you compare that to the original Ether story, the original Ether story also had 5 games. So I don't think this is like too soon to end it, although a lot of people probably wouldn't even count Vanguard as being part of the Dark Ether story. I kind of get that, because yes, it felt very disconnected, but it still technically was part of it. So I think this would be the perfect time to just finally end the story and just be done with it. And for Call of Duty 2026, we're gonna get a bit crazy here. We're gonna get a bit wacky, a little bit goofy, and that's exactly what I think Zombies should do at this point in time, because the past couple games, they've probably been more serious. You know, they're still in the Dark Ether story, but for 2026, this, of course, would be Infinity Ward's next game. The rumor right now is that they're going to be making a Modern Warfare 4 of some sort. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll do a completely new IP, but let's just roll with the idea of it being a Modern Warfare 4. What do I think they should do within their game? And yes, I do think they should make a Zombies mode. I know a lot of people disagree with me and say they should just stick to Spec Ops, but Spec Ops sucks. It's always sucked. I hate to tell you, I've never liked Spec Ops. It's always very uninspiring. It's always very uninteresting. And anything that's in Spec Ops could easily be added to just an extension of campaign or some sort. It does not need to be its own co-op mode. I don't think it works well like that. The co-op modes should be something more unique, more special, like what Zombies is. Would I be okay with them doing something like Extinction? Sure, but we're not talking about that today, because that's not what I want them to do. What I want them to do is a spiritual successor to Infinite Warfare Zombies. And you might be questioning me, like, how does that make any sense? How are they going to do that if it's not actually an Infinite Warfare 2? Well, it doesn't really matter. They don't have to make an Infinite Warfare 2 for them to still do a spiritual successor to that zombies mode. I mean, it could be a completely new game. It could be whatever game it is, and they could still do a mode that's very similar to Infinite Warfare Zombies. Now, do they have to follow up the exact same Infinite Warfare storyline? No, of course not. When I say spiritual successor, I mean do the same concept. And if you guys don't know, if you've never played Infinite Warfare Zombies essentially was this mode where each map took place within a Willard Wyler movie, which of course was one of the fictional characters created in this universe. And you can do that same concept where each map in this game is also based on a fictional movie. And what they did in Infinite Warfare is that each movie felt like a very unique subgenre. For example, one of the maps took place in a 50s monster movie, which of course was Attack of the Radioactive Thing. Another map took place in a 70s like Kung Fu style movie that took place in New York City. So all these maps just had their own unique, distinct feel to it based on some sort of subgenre that it was covering. There was also a map that took place in the 90s and was basically a horror film. So do stuff like that in this game with completely new movies, and you can continue the storyline, but in a separate way. You don't have to bring back Willard Wyler. You could do a whole new character, just have it be the same kind of idea where this character is forcing these people into his movies and having them complete quests within the movies. You don't have to take the story seriously here. You can just have kind of fun with it, and that's what this game mode should be. It should just be a fun mess around time, just like Infinite Warfare Zombies was. And just some random examples of things they can do. They can do a pirate themed map. I mean, imagine a map during like the pirate ages on pirate ships, and you can like travel different pirate ships through zip lines. Think of like the end battle from Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Think of that scene where there's 3 ships all around a giant whirlpool, and you know, Captain Jack Sparrow's like swinging from ship to ship. Think about like that layout there in a zombies map form, with like zombies that come out of the water and they basically look like Davy Jones's men. You know how they looked in that movie where they all looked all, you know, messed up and they had like coral growing on them and seaweed everywhere. That would just look so fantastic in the zombies map form. I think they could do so much with that. They could have a map with dinosaurs, and I know you might think that's insane, but we've seen dragons before in zombies, so there's no reason why dinosaurs would be a too much when they've done dragons before. Dragons are basically a similar thing to dinosaurs. The map could either take place during the Jurassic era, or it could take place in present day, but it could be like a Jurassic Park type of a thing where, you know, dinosaurs are brought back to life or something, and maybe have it take place in a place just like Jurassic Park. They could do a map at a haunted house and have it be another like horror map type thing. They could have a Zombies in Spaceland sequel, which I think would be awesome if we go back to the exact same location as Zombies in Spaceland, but it's not really a remake, it's more of a reimagining where it's the same location, but it's opened up again and maybe in present day, and the theme park has been expanded. So there's new rides, maybe they add a carousel, a Ferris wheel, maybe another roller coaster. They add more arcade machines, more playable arcade machines, and it's just a bunch of more stuff. And it almost acts as like a 10-year anniversary for Zombies in Spaceland, because of course Zombies in Spaceland first released in November 2016. So imagine that being the launch map for this game, as, you know, marketing it as the 10-year anniversary of Zombies in Spaceland. Like, how insane would that be? You could also do like a Harry Potter type of a map that has like wizards and everything like that. And I know that might be a bit too much because it might be too similar to Harry Potter, but honestly, they've done collaborations within the recent games, plenty of them. Why not do maps that take place with their collaborations? You know, for example, they just did a Walking Dead collaboration in Modern Warfare 3. Why not have a map that literally just takes place within the Walking Dead prison? And yes, I'm aware that story fans will probably not be that interested in a mode like this because it's not going to have that deep, serious storytelling that prior Zombies maps would have. But honestly, like, do we need that every single year? Because, I mean, think about it. Let's say we didn't have a new Zombies mode this year and instead it was Spec Ops. Does Spec Ops ever really have a detailed story either? No, not really. I mean, sometimes with Modern Warfare 2, for example, they had those raid missions, and yes, it did add a little bit to the campaign story, but it was never enough to the point where, like, it was that serious. Like, no one was ever making, you know, thousands of theory videos on those storylines. Like, it was never really that deep. So why do we need to have a deep co-op storyline every single year? We really don't. There could be story here, don't get me wrong. Even Infinite Warfare did have a storyline. There was a storyline there, and they could do that here, but just have fun with it too, above all else. Have a year where it's just meant to be fun zombies with fun Easter eggs, with fun high rounds, with fun wonder weapons, just going crazy with these really diverse maps that just everything feels so different from each other, and basically is the best time for them to do maps that they would never do in any other game because it just wouldn't fit as well. I mean, a pirate theme map, sure, you can probably make it fit in any game, but it would fit perfectly in a game like this. And yes, of course, it would definitely make sense to go to Lee Ross and actually see if he wanted to return to help work on this, because he is the one who created Infinite Warfare Zombies. He is the one who made that as amazing as it was. But of course, if he didn't want to join, I don't think he would be against them still doing something similar to what he was doing before. And yes, as I said before, Infinity Ward would be making this entire game. Treyarch would not do a single thing on it. They don't need to. There is not this secret formula to making good zombies maps that only Treyarch knows about. Infinity Ward is capable of making good zombies. They could do it. They just have to, have the time for it, and they have to have enough good ideas and just put it together, and yeah, they can create something amazing. And now let's get to Call of Duty 2027, which would be Sledgehammer's next game, assuming they're not forced to work on COD 2025. I really hope they aren't. I want Sledgehammer to have a nice 4 years to make their next game. And the rumors currently is that they want to make a new Advanced Warfare game. Now, I don't think it would be titled Advanced Warfare 2, but maybe it would be like a spiritual successor to Advanced Warfare in some way, just take place in the same universe. So of course, for zombies, they should definitely do a spiritual successor to Exo Zombies. And I know a lot of people cringe at that idea, especially if you didn't like Exo Zombies. And don't get me wrong, I hated Exo Zombies. I thought it was terrible. I thought it was easily the worst zombies mode of all time. I mean, it's definitely between that or Vanguard, but I do think it was pretty bad. But does that mean a spiritual successor couldn't work? No, of course not. If the mechanics were different, if the gameplay itself was different, then it wouldn't be a problem. You would just have the same core idea of having an exosuit, some of the zombies having exosuits, and that's about it. Those are the only things that would really be similar to the original Exo Zombies. And you could also title it Exo Zombies if you wanted to, just to have it really be a spiritual successor in a lot more ways. But again, completely different systems. Do not make it anything like Exo Zombies otherwise. Just have it be, the same general feel, the same general idea, the same concept. You would have, more unique sci-fi looking maps. Think about something like Blade Runner or Terminator, like that style of sci-fi where it's just, not crazy futuristic, but it's enough to the point where it's gonna look very different. It's gonna have a very different vibe to it, and you can just do a lot out of that. I don't know if they should do, a whole new story, or if it should actually continue the Exo Zombies storyline. Either way, I think it would be really interesting just to let Sledgehammer make a zombies mode, because they've actually only had one attempt at zombies. A lot of people don't know this, but Advanced Warfare Zombies was actually not even made by Sledgehammer. Apparently, it was made by Raven Software. And of course, Sledgehammer then made World War II Zombies. So I think it'd be interesting to see what they can do now. Sledgehammer is a very different studio now anyways. They're not really the same studio they were when they made World War II Zombies. So I don't even think it would be similar to that either. And just like how it would be for COD 2026, this would be 10 years after Sledgehammer's last Zombies mode. Last time they made it was, of course, World War II in 2017. And now this is 2027. So 10 years, gap between the last Zombies mode is pretty crazy, but I would love to see what they can do with this mode, and I think there's definitely a lot of possibilities for it. And then last but certainly not least, let's get to Call of Duty 2028 Zombies, which of course would be developed by Treyarch. Now, I don't know what this game would be called at this point. It would technically be Black Ops 8, which is insane to hear. It'd be the 8th Black Ops game. It obviously wouldn't be called Black Ops 8, but it is the 8th Black Ops game if they were to keep doing Black Ops titles, which I guess they could. I don't really know, but what I think they should do for zombies here is something very, very different than anything we've seen in Ether before. It should not be Dark Ether. It should not be the main Ether. It should be completely separate. In my personal opinion, what they should do is continue the Chaos storyline. I know a lot of people think that might be crazy, especially without Jason Blundell. Like I said, for the Lee Ross thing, I do think they should at least ask him if he would like to return for it. But of course, that probably won't happen. That's definitely very unrealistic. But here's the thing. I think the reason Jason Blundell left is because he wasn't given enough freedom for what he wants to do with zombies. So this would be the chance for them to actually give him his freedom to do whatever he wants and just let him do the Chaos story the way he wants to handle it. And I think he would be on board if that was the case. But then again, I don't really know how that works. I've never seen a developer leave a studio and then come back years later. I personally have never seen that. I'm sure it has happened before, but I think that's definitely very rare. But let's say you can't get him. I think you could still continue it in some way, shape, or form, or at least continue the idea of it by covering mythology within the zombies maps. The amount of maps you can do within the Chaos story is pretty much endless. You can do maps set in Egypt, like the Egyptian pyramids, which so many people have wanted for years. You could do a map in Atlantis. You can do a map in Asgard. Yes, the Asgard. It wasn't made up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That actually is a real Greek mythology thing. You can do the underworld, you can do Medusa's lair. Imagine a map that takes place in Medusa's lair and you get to fight Medusa at the very end. I've thought about this for years. Ever since they introduced Medusa into the Chaos story at the end of Ancient Evil, I always thought about how cool a boss fight against Medusa would be, because you would have to make it work in a way to where you can't look at her. So you have to take her out without actually looking at her. Maybe it would be something like if you look at her, you freeze in place and you have to like melee your way out of it, just like in Call of the Dead when you get frozen in the water. And so you have the situation where you kind of have to like take her out without looking at her. Maybe there's special glasses you can get on the map, maybe a special piece of equipment that you put on and it allows you to look at her. But if the zombies hit you enough, you lose the glasses and you have to like get them again or something like that. There's so many ideas they can do for something like this, because I mean, Greek mythology is so deep. Not just Greek mythology, you can go any sorts of mythology, Norse mythology, any of that stuff. There's so much to it, and I would love to see more maps based on it. I think that's one of the coolest thing about the Black Ops 4 Chaos maps. I know there's issues design-wise with some of those maps, but the issue was never the maps themselves in terms of the aesthetic. The aesthetic was never the issue. They always looked awesome. Voyage of Despair looks amazing. 9 looks amazing. Dead of the Night looks amazing. Ancient Evil also looks amazing. They all look really cool, have really cool bosses. Everything about it was so cool from that angle. You just needed to, you know, have better game design, I guess. Even though I did like most of those maps. I know some people didn't for a lot of them, but I don't know. I really love Ancient Evil and 9, for example. So I think there's definitely a lot of love to have for a mode like this if they were to return with it in 2028. And that is going to do it for this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts on all of these games. Do you like these ideas? Do you despise these ideas? And then when it comes after 2028, I think there should just be more zombies every year. I really just want to see more ideas put to the table. You just have to do very different storylines. Do not connect it to the campaign. That is the key here. So I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.